Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 5 of Happiness in Higher Ed podcast. Once again, my name is John Hill. I use he, him pronouns, and my guest today is Nat Betancourt Arellano. And right before I introduce you formally, I will say our mission statement. So in a world that can be engulfed in darkness, we must shine bright and lead the change for a better future. As we continue to shape and challenge emerging adults' minds, it is also our duty to reflect and remember what makes us happy and why we continue to do the work that we do. So once and for all, here is Nat Betancourt Arellano. And Nat Betancourt Arellano serves as the coordinator of the LGBTQ Queer Resource Center at California State University, Fullerton. They earned their Bachelor of Arts in Communication with a minor in history at California State University, Fullerton, and their Master's of Science in College Counseling and Student Development from Azusa Pacific University. They have previously worked in first-year experience, career services, leadership development, and residence life, and currently serve on the regional advisory board for the National Association of Student Personnel Administrators, or also known as NASPA. As someone that identifies as bisexual and a trans-masculine, non-binary Latine, thank you. They hope that their narrative and experiences can positively impact others and be of support to students navigating their queer identities. So without further ado, Nat, do you want to elaborate on that?
Woo! Is this where I just applaud myself? Is this
no, totally go for it. This is
you have like a button where it cues the audience, the recording.
Maybe if we get more budget.
Yeah. More budget. Well, hi, John. Yeah, I mean, thanks for reading my long bio. It's always so fun to watch people get through the marathon of all of the accolades as they introduce a guest. So thank you so much. But yeah, my name is Nat. I use they, them pronouns. And yeah, I'm the coordinator for the LGBT Queer Resource Center at Cal State Fullerton. And honestly, I never thought I'd be able to say that. Because when I was growing up, being queer was totally not okay. I mean, I grew up in a super conservative, religious household with also a lot of cultural expectations. So growing up Latina or Latinx, the Latina, so that accent on the E is just another way of having inclusive language, but particularly Spanish language, because it's the E acento is essentially the gender neutral within Spanish language. So that's an emerging, I guess you could say, sort of term. But anywho, yeah. So being Latinx, there's a lot of expectations on who I was supposed to be, and I didn't fit any of that bill. And so it actually wasn't until I got to college that I was like, oh, there's other queer people. There are people that look like me. And when I say look like me, like the version that I am now, which is who you see, short hair, masculine tattoos and stuff. And that was just super inspiring. So it's really great to kind of see that full circle of what I went through, and now to be here in this role and do what I do. It's awesome.
Nice. No, that's honestly you sent me your bio, I'm probably going to say close to a month ago. Yeah. And I didn't realize it. I read through it, but I was like, I've never seen that before.
Yeah.
I've never seen that before. No. So thank you for explaining that.
Language is always changing in this work, especially with queer trans work, because there's always new labels, new identities that come out. And so yeah, it's just a constant learning and unlearning sort of deal. That's honestly what has been the biggest learning curve, I think, in being in this role. So it's exciting though. There's always something new. So,
True. Nice. And it keeps it like you said,
exciting. It keeps it fun. Exciting. There's always room for growth, which to me is just incredibly exciting. I mean, I'm technically supposed to be the expert on campus. I'm the official gay for Cal State Fullerton, essentially. But I like to joke about it as that way. But I don't really like to look at myself that, because this isn't just a me thing. It's everybody should be able to provide an affirming and welcoming space that supports LGBTQ folks. So, so it's great to, you know, be able to learn new things and learn with others and watch them grow. So yeah, this job is fun. It's a lot of fun.
Nice. Thank you. So without further ado, we're just going to jump into the questions. That's okay with
Sure.
you? Cool.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. So the first question that we have is, what was the reason you started to pursue a career in higher education?
Yeah, I had a mid-college crisis.
Okay.
And yeah, so
Okay.
because I originally went to college to be a sports photographer. I had spent all of high school on my high school's newspaper team. I was the sports editor, the sports photographer, the editor-in-chief. I did all of this journalism stuff. And I was like, okay, this will be the job, you know, because that's what they always told me. Like, you got to know what you want to do, and you got to go into college knowing what it is that you want to do. And, you know, even then I was still unsure, but it was expected of me to go to school. And, you know, that was just the next step. And so I got into Cal State Fullerton, which was local to me. Yeah, go Titans. And so I went there to earn a bachelor's in communication. But like halfway through, I was like, this is not it. And because I realized it was just, one, it was super expensive. You know, I was coming from, you know, we weren't like super poor, but I mean, like, we were like middle to low class, oh my God, low socioeconomic class. And, you know, I didn't have the money to afford new cameras, equipment, laptops, all these different deals. Like
SD cards.
Exactly.
SD cards.
All of my work I had to do at the computer labs, like every single project that I had, because I didn't have it. And as I just kind of started to go through my education, it seemed just so out of touch with my own values and what I wanted to accomplish. Because what I really realized at the end of the day is that I enjoyed helping people. You know, a lot of, I think, the initial passion of getting into journalism came from seeing Occupy movements going on throughout Los Angeles and seeing protests and march. And I thought, wow, that's awesome. Like, for people to go out there and stand up for something that is so important to them and fight for that. You know, I want to be on the front lines to like document that. You know, history has always been something that's important to me. So it's important that this is documented, that people see this, that people know these stories. But I realized in the tool or the process, I guess you could say, of getting to understand people, it wasn't through photography. It wasn't through, you know, communications for me. And so I had this kind of mid-college crisis. I started going to our student mental health center on campus. And that actually was so transformational for me to, for the very first time in my life, get mental health support and really talk about how I was feeling. Because I didn't really do a lot of that when I was growing up. We didn't talk about our feelings, you know. So to have someone be there to kind of listen and hear me and help me navigate through what I was feeling, you know, it was fantastic. And so I liked that, and I liked the connections that I was making at the university. And I ended up getting involved to be a peer mentor with the Office of First Year Experience. And in that role, I got to support, I mean, hundreds of first year students from local Orange County area who were not only first year students, but oftentimes first gen, you know, coming from different underserved communities, Latinx communities, Asian, Pacific American, Swana, all those different things. And it was just great to be able to make these connections, these one-on-one connections with students that were just so excited about coming to the university. And I was stoked. I was like, you're here, I'm here. Like, look at all the cool things about this university, you know, ways to get involved, majors that you could explore, different resources that the campus had for our students. And it was just really great to kind of see these students grow And even in that first semester, if you just graduated high school and now you're in college, and like that's a huge step, like you're an adult now. Ooh. But for them to be able to just like gain autonomy and experience new things, it was really fun. And I was just lucky. I had mentors that told me, hey, if you love this work and you're pretty good at it, you could make this a job. And I was like, you mean the 30 plus hours that I volunteer for free on this campus every week, I could be paid for that? I was like, oh, heck yes. Like, what do I got to do? Sign me up. I don't know where I want to go. And this seems like the most direct passion. And so I got involved with NASPA and their undergraduate fellowship program, which is a program dedicated to students that come from historically underserved communities that are interested in going into higher education and wanting to go to graduate school. So I gained a mentor, and they helped me prepare for grad school. They got me into grad school. They introduced me to faculty. I went to a summer leadership conference. I went to other conferences. It was just like such a great time and great experience. And what it really was at the end of the day was all of the support that I was looking for and that I didn't have when I was just a comm student. I didn't have those connections with faculty. I didn't feel as welcomed in that college. And when I tried to get involved, I didn't find mentors to be able to guide me. And so I felt really alone. And so now to come into this student affairs side and to feel all of that sense of belonging, and it was just so transformational. And I think that's really what kind of keeps me going, is that, I loved college. So why leave? But also, I loved college because of that transformation of me. I changed so much. The person now today, John, is not at all the same person 10 years ago. And if anything, if I could accomplish anything, I am most proud of that.
Nice. No, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Long-winded. I told you I'm gonna be long-winded this whole time.
That's totally fine. And all I could think about is when you said I love college. I think back to like Asher Roth and the song I Love College.
Yep, I remember that song.
And see, it's funny, you had mentioned that you remember that song, and so do I. And I run alcohol education workshops in my position at A&M, and I bring that up every single time. And students are like, I never heard that song. And it pains me.
Really?
Being a borderline millennial, Gen Z, zillennial over here.
Yeah.
I'm just like, I love college. I'll just look down and just sing it in my head as we continue this workshop, as no one knows.
Let me tell you, the things that these students make me feel old about, it pisses me off. I'm like, I'm not that old. I swear, I'm cool. I know the TikToks and and the trends and whatever. So
that's like, I'm hip, and they're like, we don't say that anymore.
No, we don't. I'm like one of those corny cools. I will always take that title. So
nice. That's awesome. No, but that's great. That's because I remember, and aren't you, if I remember correctly, you are enough mentor, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I was serving as enough mentor, not this year, just because I had started at a newer institution within the last 2 years. But when I worked at Cal State Monterey Bay, I was enough mentor there, and I had some enough students, particularly Ricky Watakasim, shout out Ricky, who's the current grad student over at University of San Francisco. Actually did his field work here with my center this past semester. So
nice. Okay.
So and I think that's even alone just a great example of the importance of mentorship. The different opportunities and connections that students can make and be able to grow and build skills, like so important. I mean, without my mentors, I would not be here. And so I really try to give back a lot to the people that I mentor, including you.
To this day, every single time I mention that I'm talking to Natty Nat, mentor.
Yeah.
So
well, yeah, it's important, and I've always believed in the lift as you climb model. And so, I will always continue to lift you all of my little babies, my little babies.
And I think back to a conversation at CSUMB that I had with Josh Goen right before I left.
Yeah, Josh.
Right before I left for grad school, is that he had told me the one thing to remember. I mean, he probably could have told me like 50,000 things. Always wear a vest, always make sure it's got a zipper.
Always wear a vest. Josh always had that vest on, no matter what.
But the one thing that he told me is to always remember to lift others up. And I never really understood what he was talking about until, I got into grad school and I saw the disproportionate in some of the ways things are. You kind of see you start a master's program and like you start learning in these classes, as well as like in your assistantship, and all of a sudden that that curtain that was there starts to slowly get pulled back, and you start to realize that that you do have to help others. And it's kind of like what you were talking about specifically about lifting them up as you go up. And I just, the importance of that is so awesome.
Yeah, but absolutely
yeah. So moving into the next question that I got for you is, what makes you happy? And thinking about one thing in higher ed as well as one personal thing.
What makes me happy? Honestly, what makes me happy is, funny enough, the conversation that I had 20 minutes ago about, I was, before we jumped on our podcast, I was telling John about some issues that we were having at my university in terms of supporting students from a certain population. And honestly, it's not even like that example in itself, but just it's the conversations that I have with colleagues to like just brainstorm and think critically about who are we, what is our goal, what do we want to do to live out our values and directly support the needs of our students. And it's so amazing to when if you get the right people in the room together to bounce ideas off of one another. And shout out my friend and colleague Terrell Forey, who's the coordinator for the African American Resource Center here, because I find us having those conversations often. Ways in which how do we push back on administration or even policies that we're supposed to uphold. How do we create change? How do we live out these values? And I was just telling him, I was like, I within the last 6 months, particularly in being this role, I have felt a sense of power in a way in which is more so that I feel empowered to create change, to be heard, to push back, to give feedback, and really be actionable in this work and not just be complacent. And that is what makes me happy, because it's just exciting, I am it's funny, I am certainly a creature of habit. That's usually when it comes to like food or music, or like a daily ritual, but I also am constantly seeking out something new, something that can change. And so to be able to explore that each year has been incredibly exciting. I think this role really has allowed me to be creative, and it just makes me so happy to be able to be creative, because I never looked at these positions as creative. When I was in housing, it was just like, you do conduct, you yell at some residents for drinking alcohol, and the smoke alarm gets set off and you got to wake up at 2 a.m. and go outside in your jammies, and
Nat loved their time as in res life. They completely loved it.
What?
They completely
the last
loved
6 months were really hard, but that first year and a half was amazing. And I loved it. I really did appreciate it. I love the time that I had there. But it was hard. It was challenging. And it didn't feel like it served me in all the ways that I knew I could give. And so I just feel really fortunate, really grateful to be in a place now where I can find that joy, and where I feel like I can still grow though, and then constantly challenging myself. And just, I don't know, it just makes me happy. I feel like I have purpose, and that's what I've always wanted, is purpose. And to be here and to serve others, it's just really, it's great to live out that dream or that goal. I think what makes me happy personally,
I'm excited. I'm really excited for this one. I'm excited.
I mean, this is honestly probably the hardest question. I could talk about student affairs all day long, but it's like, you want me to choose between baseball, my Funko Pop collection, and like naps? I don't know. Like, I don't know which one of these makes me happy.
And I'm shocked that you didn't say bobblehead collection. I'm a little shocked that you didn't say that.
I won't lie. I think the bobbleheads are just a little bit more of my partner's obsession than mine. Okay. But I do love our bobblehead collection. And no, but I think honestly, I think what makes me happy personally is my support system. That's my partner. We've been married for coming up on 4 years now, and together 8 years.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and he's just been so incredibly supportive of everything that I've ever done. Back when I was in college, when I went to grad school, when I got my first job at Monterey, all these different things, and even when I came out, he was there. And it was so affirming. He was one of the first people that I told that I was bisexual and that I was non-binary. And I remember a lot of the fear of being rejected, especially by him, because at that point we had been together for a while, and I had always known, that I was queer. There was something inside of me, particularly in terms of my gender identity, that just told me that I wasn't just a girl or a woman. There was something more to me than that. And so to get to a place where I was like, okay, I'm ready to live that out in real time, in real life, and not really know how other people would receive me. It was scary. And when I came out to him, it was just such a relief, like this huge wave of love and support. And it was really in that moment that I knew I didn't need anything else. If I had a partner that was going to love me no matter what, and I had friends that were going to love me and support me no matter what, and I was living my values and my dreams, that's all I need. And I think that's what made it a little easier, to tell family, to tell friends, to accept this job, and really be me. And so without my partner, I definitely wouldn't be here. And especially without the environment that I created for myself, to be out, to be safe. That is really what makes me happy. Because for a very, very long time, I was depressed. I live with depression now, and but I've gotten help for that, and I'm now just in a place where there's every possibility is possible. I have such a positive outlook on life now, and I think it is just incredibly enlightening. So yeah, those are the two things that make me happy.
Nice, that's awesome. Yeah. No, I think that's I have nothing. I'm speechless. So I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. So on to the next question. So what keeps you resilient in the face of some of the challenges you faced? I know that before we hit record, you had talked through some of that, but but what keeps you going?
what keeps me going? Honestly, the students. The students is what makes every single part of this worth it. And I mean, you and me, we talked about this too. Like, we wouldn't even be here if there weren't even students. Like, this job wouldn't even exist, you know?
Nope, you were 100% correct.
What there would be literally no point. And so, you know, it's both kind of you know, well, actually, you know, the students are important, but also, you know, just again, being able to see their development, you know, and I won't go too much into like student affairs-y terms, but like just
you don't want to talk about self-authorship theory.
I did about challenge and support, and you know,
shout out Baxter McGolda, everyone.
Schloshberg was always my favorite.
You know, honestly, I think it's comical that, you know, that book is in my office and I read most of it. I mentioned that on Chase's podcast. I read through most of it. And that is the one that I live by because I remember it the most. And I'll say that.
Why do you think I throw Schloshberg out? I'm like, there's four T's, 4 transition, and I don't know what the T's actually stand for, but there's 4 of them.
And the name is such a name. Like, you know, there are some individuals out there that just have a name that you're just like, I will remember this for the rest of my life.
That one. Yep. Yeah, and just, you know, being able to walk along someone's journey is just so powerful. You know, I've seen students grow from, you know, when they were 18, you know, wide-eyed, bushy-tailed, they're like, I'm gonna drink the house down or whatever, and you know, and then they grow old into a senior, and it's just like, you know, like the Elmo meme that's on fire, you know.
Yes.
And
yes.
But even in between all of that, you know, there's so much that happens. You know, they're learning new concepts from their classes, they're meeting new people, hearing diverse perspectives, you know, getting to explore parts of themselves and others, and it's just so beautiful to be a part of that. And you know, when I as part of managing my center, you know, I often have a lot of one-on-ones with students. I often have to do sometimes crisis intervention or provide some initial counseling support. But you know, sometimes students just want to talk because I might just be the very first person ever that they can even utter the words "I'm gay" to, and like that alone is like, wow, you know. And I know what that feels like because that was me. You know, when I was a student here, that was me slowly peeking my head into the center, walking by, hoping no one will notice me, you know, because I was scared. And it was really the coordinator at that time, Bree Sedano, who is now the director of the Pride Center over at CSU Dominguez Hills. Someone I absolutely wholly respect and admire. Without him, you know, I wouldn't have seen myself. And to be able to take his training, to go to his workshops, learn from him, and then be a part of the center, find my own community, and you know, really start to integrate myself into accepting being queer and trans, and but also, you know, how could I continue to advocate for others? If it wasn't for this institution, I don't know if I would have had that. You know, I don't know a lot of what my life would be like if I didn't get into higher education. You know, honestly, I might not be here, like on this world. And so I am so grateful all the time about what the university has done for me, what students have done for me, mentors have done. And because without it, it really has, the resiliency in myself, you know, is, I think, its own kind of motivator to know how far I've come and to be a role model for that for so many other people. You know, I give trainings and workshops. I do speeches and stuff all the time. I'm now suddenly this figure, public figure, which is wild. Like anybody can Google me and there's like a photo of me in a suit or something, and and some bio and I never thought that would happen. That blows my mind. That blows my mind. It's so wild to me. And so, I think about all the ways in which I was so hard on myself and now where I am. And it's just like nothing can ever break me down like I break me down,
No,
and so
that's very true. That's
yeah.
very true.
And so it's really it's been the support of others. And, and especially when it comes to, I think of challenges now, trying to support students that are experiencing, racism or xenophobia or homophobia, transphobia. Those are hard. You list here budget cuts as well, and I've had budget cuts. It sucks. It freaking sucks. And I just I go back to focusing on what am I here for. It is a student. It is a student journey. And no matter what, whatever lack of money, whatever lack of resources, it doesn't matter. I am here and I have power. I have skills and experience and knowledge. And that alone can create a transformational experience for a student. And so
when you had mentioned when you had said that right then and there, I just envisioned, just a power stance, like a superhero power stance. This is Nat and this
one
is
huge
me.
N. yeah, that's exactly what it means. Bye. But it's I don't know. Like I think I spent so long just being really hard and really down on me and really not coping well with the challenges, that now I'm just like, no, there's a better way. There's a better way we could do this. And I'm just going to continue to push back on that.
And I think you had mentioned this earlier, and I think it was when you were talking about either what makes you happy or the reason that you started in higher education is kind of having those conversations. And what it sounded like that you were talking about, and you can totally correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm wrong a lot of the times, is that you see a problem that's in front of you, and that you have that support system and kind of like talk through it. So like there is a problem, but like you don't see it as a deterrent. You see it as a way that you have the ability to brainstorm with other individuals, as well as take it at face value and have the ability to say that, okay, this is currently what's going on, and these are the steps that I want to take to talk through this issue as well as tackle this issue.
Yes.
So
yeah, absolutely. And I'm a verbal processor. You can probably tell how much I talk right now. And so I'm constantly bouncing ideas off of people, trying to brainstorm, trying to work through a process. And I think one of the biggest things too that I've learned, especially in this role, is I cannot do this by myself. Just because I am the designated gay does not mean that I need to do everything designated gay. Like, this is a shared responsibility to be educational about LGBTQ issues, to create spaces that are affirming and welcoming of LGBTQ students, to be mindful of how policy discriminates against LGBTQ students, and then actively enact change with that. This is not just me. This is the dean of students. This is my boss. This is the RA in the halls. This is the academic advisor in the College of Natural Sciences. This is the librarian up on the third floor. This is all a shared responsibility. And being able to communicate what are your needs and what can people do is important, and to collaborate in that is important to community and unity, and really the only way in which I think we can continue to strive to create equitable and socially just spaces and policies, especially within higher education.
And I think it's something that you had mentioned specifically about like the certain individuals on campus that need to be a part of this as well, is that I remember a conversation in Chase's podcast that the administrator didn't really necessarily see them as another position other than the director of the LGBTQ Resource Center, or I think it's LGBTQ, the Pride Center at Syracuse University. And I think
Yeah.
it's interesting to hear that experience and then hear the way that not only that Chase speaks, but the way that you speak, and like how it's, you have so many different lenses because you've seen, or you're looking through it with, you know, all these different lenses, because you know that these are the experiences of the students, and that this is your realm, but it's such a transferable skill to, you know, like even like Avena students, you have that perspective because then you can see different students experiences as well as what they need, the policy and all that. And just you talking through that is just, that was great.
Oh,
That was great.
yeah.
That was great.
Yeah.
So
Well, thank you. And you know, I know it's you know, different universities have different cultures. And it's always interesting to navigate, you know, one from the next. You know, I've
mhm,
been at private colleges, I've been at liberal arts colleges, I've been at the public sector, and they're all so different and they all have their own political things. And so, you know, I think just continuing, and that's honestly, that's why I stress the values part so much. Because I think if you can empower yourself as an individual, um, and really truly know what's important to you, and be able to reflect on your responsibilities as well, you know, being able to be steadfast when it comes to issues and challenges, like when they are going to cut your budget. Well, it's important to my values, to be able to have community.
mhm,
And so because community is a strong value to me, I am going to try and strive to go against not having a budget cut, because I can't do this alone. I need community and I need multiple staff to help me in facilitating conversations, education. And you know, so it's really any kind of justification. I'm always striving to connect that back to my values and my responsibility to
mhm.
students. And so, you know, that's always in kind of a face of challenges or resiliency. Like I've always tried to look at, you know, how can I set a groundwork for that to push back, you know.
Mhm.
But it's hard. These universities, man, I just, you know, everybody's got an opinion about something, and they always also have, there's one way you should do it or another way you should do it. And you know, communication and collaboration, it's so important. And if you're not on the same page, you're never going to get anything done. Look at
True.
electronic RCAs.
True. Nat, I was gonna end it at just saying I agree with you 100% and not
And
say
then I just
anything and have
had
like a
to, you know, throw a
dramatic look
little
away,
shade.
a dramatic look away from the camera, and then you brought up electronic RCIs, and now I literally can't even look at the camera because I just, all the PTSD of that
uh
experience. Um, Anyways, so
we're not even giving kind for folks listening. Me and John were trying to work on a project to establish electronic room inventories, and that did not work out.
you know what, that is the shortest way to explain something that
That entire
probably
2-year drama, yeah.
could have taken us a couple of years to explain
Yeah,
the full effects. But you know, we've had a great conversation, and I think that
yeah.
if you don't mind, I'm going to skip one of the questions and
Sure.
I'm going to go to the last one. Great conversation, by the way. But
Mhm.
what is one piece of advice you live by in your practice?
Ooh, yes. Oh, I have the best one, and I'm so glad that this came to be. And I'm just so excited because you're gonna know it too.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it is, you know, our good friend and colleague Antonio Robinson. Shout out to
Yes.
Tony.
Yes.
From him, I heard first. Once you know better, do better. And boy, have I lived that every single day since I heard it 4 years ago. Because it is, honestly, I think it's just so true, especially to my work. You know, I work in diversity and equity, and social justice. And so I constantly have to strive to be better. But at the same time, I'm also constantly learning about different perspectives, identities, experiences, things that I do not hold, things that I am not knowledgeable of, but I am growing and I'm learning and educating myself as well as others.
Mhm.
And as I continue to do that, it is important that I take what I have learned and put it into action. And so now that I know better, I should do better. And that is what I encourage for all folks that I connect with, especially when I do my ally trainings.
Mhm.
I do ally trainings for our entire campus, sometimes folks in the community as well. And I understand, not everybody knows about, things of gender identity and labels and, sexual orientations. And I get it, I didn't know about these things. I didn't have words to put to these things when I was younger. And so, that's what I just encourage. You will unlearn things, you will learn things. But what's important is that you continue to practice, you continue to reinforce this behavior, because it's so important. It's so important to our students
Mhm.
to use their correct pronouns or their correct name, or to use gender inclusive language, and to understand the unique perspectives of queer and trans students. And so, know better, do better. I love it so much. So thank you, Tony. Shout out to you for giving me that little nugget, because it has stuck with me. And it probably will stick with me forever.
And I think the one thing that once again, I learned this from, if we're gonna start name dropping individuals from CSUMB. I remember having a conversation with Victoria, and
Yeah, Victoria.
and it was the idea of listening to understand rather than listening to know. And that is just one thing that that resonated when you were talking, is having the ability to see that something has changed, and to sit there and lean into that discomfort, and trying to, okay, so I thought it was, and I think about specifically about the queer community and LGBTQ, and like everyone's like, I thought it was just LGB. Well, there's more to it. It's ever evolving. And having that ability to say, okay, so what are the other, like when people like, and this is so terrible, but like when individuals kind of like make fun of oh, well, we're just going to add more letters to it, or add, as numbers next, and I think that's like such a negative thing to hear. But like, question it and be like, okay, so what do those mean? Can you explain that to me? Can we sit down and have this conversation, and the power that has? And then once you have the ability, and someone makes fun of it or questions it, in a derogatory way, having that ability to be like, well, actually, this is what they mean, and this is what it stands for, and this is that, and then explaining that to other individuals, and just the growth of that. Everyone still needs to learn, and like you've mentioned that handful of times, and the power of that, and having the ability to learn as well as educate others is something we need more of. And I will definitely just end it there and just say that we need more of.
And to do it compassionately.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah, that also resonates with me, listening to understand. That came up a lot for me when I was in grad school. My emphasis is in counseling. So I would take counseling classes, and I always used to be in my class, we would do like mock one-on-ones, counseling one-on-ones. And I would always try to be the fix-it person. And so there was one day my professor, had to say, you're not trying to fix anything right now. You're just listening. You were just hearing them. And from there, maybe you can fix it, maybe you can't. But right now, you just listen. And that's what I just try to do. The counseling skills have been so crucial, I think, to this work. Being able to have a good emotional intelligence is, I think, crucial. Especially when you're working directly with students one-on-one. And so, yeah, I also appreciate that nugget as well.
But, well, thank you, Nat. Once again,
Yeah.
I appreciate you.
I think I moved into the anti-Nat phase because I got quiet. I did the whole thing.
No, and I appreciate it. And I remember that we were joking around about that, when in my last year at CCUMB, and Jasmine, I think it was that first called you, Auntie Nat, and I like went I was like the third year RA. I was like, yeah, Auntie Nat, yeah, I'll go with it. Like, I'm not the cool hip one anymore. I'm just trying to graduate and get out of here. But the more that I think about it, and the more that I saw that transition of supervisor, friend, and then mentor, all within the span of that year of that last year. Because you always kept it real. That was the one thing that I appreciated about you, is that you were like, you're going into student affairs, and I don't want to like sugarcoat this at all. You're gonna deal with stuff. You're gonna get hit with stuff. You're always gonna, you're gonna figure something out. You're gonna open the next door, and then bam, hit you right in the face, and then you got to figure it out. And I appreciated that so much, and I think that, and it just Auntie Nat, it sums it up. So
no, absolutely. And John, I'm so glad. I'm so glad that young student affairs Auntie Nat did not screw you all up, as I was also still learning. But the authenticity too is so important. That's why I was always so real. I was like, I don't know everything, so I'm just going to tell you right now. So,
well, and I think that just hits the nail right on the head, is that it's a partnership.
Yes,
exactly. between students,
I know how much it would always piss you all off when I push back. I'm like, what do you think? What should we do?
And I don't think I ever had this conversation with you, but I'll definitely have it on a podcast. I remember leaving a lot of our one-on-ones at the beginning, like being frustrated. I was like, you have this position, you're making way more money than I am. Like, you should have all the answers. And I think that the power and, just once again, like you had mentioned, like just sitting there listening to the other individual, and then, what do you want to do? What are you going to do? How is, asking those questions that are like, they don't want to hear it, but you're going to ask it anyways. And they're going to be like sitting there, like shaking their fists, and like, why do I have to do it? But then you think about it, and like 6 months later, you're just like, not even 6 months later, but sometimes you literally just like leave that session or leave that one-on-one, and then the light bulb goes off. And I think that's just so powerful, and I think
thank God this all worked out. I feel like one of those parents that's like, I hope I don't screw up my kids.
So Teresa Nieves and I were just the test dummies for you.
That mediation was wild.
That's okay.
I mean, we could talk about that later, but but no, I mean, it was always just so important for you all to try and figure it out. Of course, like, obviously, like, I would be there to support and, guide you, but, I wouldn't ever let you fail. But I just wanted you all to feel empowered, that you could do it on your own, because you can. Like, I was almost going to say a bad word, but your stuff.
I know earlier you almost dropped it, and I was like, oh, nah. But you got it. You're good. You're good.
Well,
You're all good.
Well, all right. Well, I'll stop talking. I know I could go on and we could talk forever. So, but thank you, John, for this opportunity. And I'm so glad that you're doing this podcast. It's really great.
Yeah, no problem. And once again, thank you again for taking the time to answer these questions. But yeah, so just a heads up to everyone. So our next guest will be Jasmine Jones. I believe it's going to be on June 6th. Let me just pull up a calendar here real quick. Yes, that will be June 6th. So thank you all for listening. Don't forget to like and subscribe on YouTube, as well as follow us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. So thank you, everyone, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.